Midsummer's Nightgown. As I dusk dream in the evening breeze, eyes half open to the outstretched water, under high green canopies that silk song with leaves and robin's wings, and cicadas that fade up and out at the edges of my ears, I imagine you appear, moving gently, midsummerly here. Move toward me through the clovered glade in a gown of glowing fireflies, their dreamlight draping your bare shoulders, floating over your long arms, lighting your irises, lamping the widening night around you with a deep enchantment. Welcome to the latest floating poetry broadcast, and thank you for leaning in to the 57th show in my ongoing weekly series, coming to you live from Weekapaug, Rhode Island, from the Sheeply coast of the ocean state, here in a room by the sea, fountaining with candlelight and wisteria. This is your poet and a poetorialist, Colin Goedecke, a voice for living our days more poetically, more expressively, more soulfully. Last week, we went into relaxing and refreshing places of being, feeling, nature, self-nurture. This week, I felt we ought to touch, with many senses, inner and outer, into the realm of those supreme beings, women, into the wonders of women and things womanly worth exploring and honoring. I took myself intuitively down varied paths to bring us cultural commentary, poetry, musings, and other sharings on this theme. So, let's set foot together and heart with curiosity and all serendipity onto some of them. Well, from a wise woman, I sensed we ought to have some wise words that lead us in and off. And the person who came to mind was Clarissa Pinkola Estes. If you don't know her, she's a Jungian psychologist and author of a very well-known book, actually, to many, Women Who Dance with the Wolves. Splendid book for women and men alike, by the way. So here's some thoughts from her, some quotes from her to take us in to this realm. I hope you will go out and let stories, that is life, happen to you, and that you will work with these stories, water them with your blood and tears and your laughter till they bloom, till you yourself burst into bloom. The way to maintain one's connection to the wild is to ask yourself what it is that you want. This is the sorting of the seed from the dirt. One of the most important discriminations we can make in this matter is the difference between things that beckon to us and things that call from our souls. Nowhere can this be seen more clearly than in the choice of mates and lovers. A lover cannot be chosen a la smorgasbord. A lover has to be chosen from soul craving. To choose just because something mouth-watering stands before you will never satisfy the hunger of the soul self. And that is what the intuition is for. It is the direct messenger of the soul. And again from the same book. The psyches and souls of women also have their own cycles and seasons of doing and solitude, running and staying, being involved and being removed, questing and resting, creating and incubating, being of the world and returning to the soul place. A healthy woman is much like a wolf, robust, chock-full, strong life force, life-giving, territorially aware, inventive, loyal, roving. And last for now, all the, quote, not readies, all the, quote, I need time, are understandable, but only for a short while. The truth is that there is never a, quote, completely ready. There is never a really, quote, right time. As with any descent to the unconscious, there comes a time when one simply hopes for the best, pinches one's nose, and jumps into the abyss. If this were not so, we would not have needed to create the words heroine, hero, or courage. Thank you, Clarissa Pinkola Estes. If you haven't read the book, great encouragement on that. How about Walt Whitman? He declared himself back in time, quote, the poet of the woman, the same as the man. And he felt the gravest weakness of democracy was the artificial, culturally manufactured inequality of the genders, which he recognized not only as a corruption of democracy, but as a corruption of nature. And he took it upon himself a century and a half before his society did to save democracy from politics, standing up for the rightful balance of dignity and power. So long before the term feminism, and I actually drew some of this from Brain Pickings, wove itself into the modern lexicon, America's most celebrated poet, or at least one of the top two, became an outspoken feminist in his 1888 poem, America, a reading of which is the only surviving recording of his actual voice. He eulogized his homeland as a, quote, center of equal daughters, equal sons. As a young man, he was greatly influenced by Margaret Fuller, whose epic-making book, Women in the 19th Century, catalyzed American women's emancipation movement. Clippings of her columns from the Tribune, where she became the first female editor, were found among his papers after his death. He said, I have sometimes thought that the sole avenue and means of a reconstructed sociology depended primarily on a new birth, elevation, expansion, invigoration of woman. Great, indeed, far greater than they know, is the sphere of women. Thank you, Walt Whitman, for me and I'm sure all the women. Margaret Mead, the great cultural anthropologist, on female versus male creativity and gender and leadership and equitable parenting and why women make better scientists. One of the things she said was, in the long run, it is the complex interplay of different capacities, feminine and masculine, that protects the humanity of human beings. We do not know, she said, what one sex has developed members of the other sex can learn, from cookery to calculus, in those countries in the Eastern Bloc in which women are expected to play an equal part with men in the sciences. Great numbers of women have shown a previously unsuspected ability. We run a great risk of squandering half of our human gifts by arbitrarily denying any field to either sex or by penalizing women who try to use their gifts creatively. I wanted to touch on a moment, women's intuition, which we've all heard about. And anyone, I would say, who has spent very tuned in time with a woman, would, I believe, know for themselves that most women have an extremely strong and singular intuition. So I dialed up psychology today, and there was a PhD fellow, Ronald Riggio, who said, women's intuition, myth or reality? We've all heard the term, but is it real or just a myth? And he said, well, there's actually a research-based answer. It's about nonverbal communication skill that has clearly shown that women are, as a group, better at reading expressions of emotions than men, and so they're more likely to pick up on the subtle emotional messages being sent by others. They're also better at expressing emotions through their facial expressions, tone of voice, and body, particularly positive ones, whereas men are better at controlling felt emotions and at hiding them behind a poker face. And then he gets into empathy and other things, but I just wanted to reference that for a moment. I also wanted to bring up Betty Friedan, who wrote that great book of the time on the feminine mystique. So this is half a century after that, or more. She pulled the trigger, quote, on history and awakened women to the freedom to question what it means to live a full life. This was 1963. She gave shape to the problem with that publication of The Feminine Mystique, a centerpiece of modern gender politics, which sparked the second wave of the feminist movement, taught generations how to be a woman, and went on to become one of the most important and influential social critiques in contemporary history. How about that? So just a slice from what she had to say about that. So it was really based on sort of the Mad Men era in World War II and all of that. But these women, mostly white, mostly middle class, were at the eye of a hurricane. They knew that powerful new forces were gathering around them, but they felt strangely, uneasily becalmed. To modern generations, these women's lives seem as outmoded as the white gloves and pert hats they wore when they left the shelter of their homes. Yet, even today, their experiences and anxiety shape the choices modern women debate and the way feminism has been defined by both its supporters and its opponents. Well, we must thank Betty Friedan for that. Well, let's come to some poetry now. Alice Ostreicher, A Young Woman, a Tree, that's her poem. The life spills over some days. She cannot be at rest. Wishes she could explode like that red tree, the one that bursts into fire all this week. Senses her infinite smallness but can't seize it. Recognizes the folly of desire, the folly of withdrawal. Kicks at the curb, the pavement, if only she could at this moment, when what she's doing is plodding to the bus stop to go to school, passing that fiery tree. If only she could be making love, be making a painting, be exploding, be speeding through the universe like a photon, like a shower of yellow flames. She believes if she could only catch up with the riding rhythm of things, of her own electrons, then she would be at rest. If she could forget school, climb the tree, be the tree, burn like that. She doesn't know yet, how could she, that this same need is going to erupt every September, and that in 50 years the idea will hit her for no apparent reason in a laundromat between a washer and a dryer, like one of those electric bulbs suddenly lighting up in comic strips, there in that naked and soiled place with its detergent machines, its speckled fluorescent lights, its lint piles broomed into corners. As she fumbles for quarters and dimes, she will double over into the plastic basket's mountain of wet bed sheets and bulky overalls. Old lady, she'll grin at herself. Old lady, the desire to burn is already a burning. How about that? Thank you, Alice Ostreicher. Here's a beautifully unexpected poem from Ted Kooser. It's called A Blind Woman. She had turned her face up into a rain of light and came on smiling. The light trickled down her forehead and into her eyes. It ran down into the neck of her sweatshirt and wet the white tops of her breasts. Her brown shoes splashed on into the light. The moment was like a circus wagon rolling before her through puddles of light, a cage on wheels, and she walked fast behind it, exuberant, curious, pushing her cane through the bars, poking and prodding, while the world cowered back in a corner. Thank you, Ted Kooser. Well, I feel I, among other poets and writers and others in the world through time, am an ever deeper observer, seer, appreciator of women. Others too, but women not least, known and unknown. Well, here's a portrait of one of them on my time from the Mayan coast, one sun-flooded winter in the Yucatan. It's called La Señora. Coffee hair, mulberry eyes, rhubarb lips, chestnut skin, olive freckles, raspberry nipples, mango breasts, vine-ripened beauty. The Uruguayan writer I've brought in once in a while, Eduardo Galeano, wonderful, wonderful writer, gives us this delayed appreciation. It's from Walking Words, Window on Art. I was a boy, practically a child, and I wanted to draw. By lying about my age, I snuck in with the students who were sketching a nude. In the classes, I kept wasting paper, struggling to find lines and shapes. That naked woman who shifted her pose was a challenge for my clumsy hand and nothing more, something like a breathing vase. But one night at the bus stop, I saw her, dressed for the first time. When she stepped into the bus, her skirt slid up and revealed the threshold of her thigh. That was when my body burned. Well, I don't know who else has had out-of-body experiences, but I definitely have had a couple, and one in 1992 in my life, and it produced this poem, and it goes back decades, obviously, and it was at an old carriage house where I was living at the time. It's called Tulips. Hello, Van Gogh, I say, and step inside the painting. A still life that's not still at all. Tulips everywhere, and firelight and music. Colors dance with shapes, lines sway around a beautiful woman. Here, present, gazing in my painterly eye. Yes, life, color, light, song, tulips, and you. I must sing, Van Gogh. Oh, I must sing. Well, I have a gentle handful of questions I'd like to float out to you to ponder, if I may. First, to you as a woman, those wondrous women of you listening in right now. What is one of the most essential things about you as a woman, or about your womanliness, that you'd like a man or men in your world, or men beyond it, to know, to understand, to appreciate, to embrace, or embody? To you, as a man listening in, what is one of the most desired things you'd like to understand, or understand more about women, and or womanhood, or a woman you cherish in particular? And what about loving? How as a woman do you most want to be loved? And is that something you've expressed to a past or present partner, or would like to a future one? Men, gentle men, have you asked or ever asked your woman, your darling woman, how she wants to be loved? And if not, why not now or soon? Food for the heart, for thought, for feeling into. Kenneth Rexroth, poet, wrote this for his love, and I found it beautiful, and it called to mind how I would watch a love sleeping, dreamlike memories of remembering that. A dialogue of watching, it's called. His wife her name was Mauta. Let me celebrate you. I have never known anyone more beautiful than you. I walking beside you, watching you move beside me, watching that still grace of hand and thigh, watching your face change with words you do not say, watching your solemn eyes as they turn to me, or turn inward, full of knowing, slow or quick, watching your full lips part and smile or turn grave, watching your narrow waist, your proud buttocks in their grace, like a sailing swan, an animal, free, your own, and never to be subjugated, but abandoned, as I am to you, overhearing your perfect speech of motion, of love, and trust, and security, as you feed or play with our children. I have never known anyone more beautiful than you. Thank you, Kenneth Rexroth. Well, here's a poem, a painterly poem that I've returned to often, that sparked in my mind to find, which is William Carlos Williams' poem, Portrait of a Lady. Your thighs are apple trees whose blossoms touch the sky. Which sky? The sky where Watteau hung a lady's slipper. Your knees are a southern breeze or a gust of snow. Ah, what sort of man was Fragonard? And if that answered anything. Ah, yes, below the knees, since the tune drops that way, it is one of those white summer days. The tall grass of your ankles flickers upon the shore. Which shore? The sand clings to my lips. Which shore? Ah, petals maybe. How should I know? Which shore? Which shore? The petals from some hidden apple tree. Which shore? I said petals from an apple tree. Thank you, William Carlos Williams. Speaking of painterliness, what about those times we feel as though we are gazing at one with a loved one, a life, still life, alive still life, or that may even inside one. This was a poem of mine one summer in Bridgehampton years back, entering an impression. I open the bedroom door into a Degas-Lautrec painting. You in the white corner chair, nonchalantly nude, filing your nails. The weathered wooden chest by your bending elbow draped with a chiaroscuro plume of silk, a sun-bathed hat and shirt-striped towels fresh from the plage. Your breasts full and fancied by the viewer. Blush-brown nipples and browner eyes. Your tea-rose feet, small and innocent, ensconced in the late daylight. On that same wavelength, poem from an experience of times past, and a piece that I actually read on the air, first time I'd actually aired any of my poetry, as part of an interview on the Southampton NPR station, Long Island, Peconic Public Broadcasting with then Bonnie Grice. I'm sure she's moved on. I'm not even sure that's operating anymore, but it was then. And she asked me to read a few pieces, and this was the one I wanted most to read. My Modigliani. Your roseate face gazes straight out from the frame you're painted in, making, like other Amadeus, open eye contact with the viewer. But for this moment, you are my Modigliani and no others. With your elongated lines of black silk and velvet, your languorously outstretched body turned at a diagonal yet graceful angle on the barest suggestion of lamp-lit couch, where you appear one-dimensional but are clearly three or four, sensual, quietly erotic, individual, with your lips kissed onto the canvas and your eyes inward and outward, self-satisfied, expressive, and the skin of your neck and hands showing, and all glowing luminously out into the moving room, where a pink young lady is having a party with cake and candles, while I enjoy the sight of my beautiful, dark, and breathing Modigliani. Well, like all of our lives, our living, women or men, it's not always a bed of roses. So I wanted just to, on that side of things, just for a moment at least, to give us Dorian Laux' poem, What's Broken. He's a wonderful poet. I'm ever discovering more of her each time I do these programs and just on my own, spelunkings. What's broken? The slate-black sky, the middle step of the back porch, and long ago my mother's necklace, the beads rolling north and south. Broken the rose stem, water into drops, glass knobs on the bedroom door, last summer's pot of parsley and mint, white roots shooting like streamers through the cracks. Years ago, the cat's tail, the bird bath, the car's hood rusted latch, broken little finger on my right hand at birth, I was pulled out too fast. What hasn't been rent, divided, split? Broken the days into nights, the night sky into stars, the stars into patterns I make up as I trace them with a broken-off blade of grass. Possible, unthinkable, the cricket's tiny back as I lie on the lawn in the dark. My heart, a blue cup, fallen from someone's hands. Thank you, Dorian Laux. I thought we ought to touch, too, on matriarchy. I believe if we could get back to that myself, that we might be in much better shape going forward as a world. So may that come. I'd like to be a part of that. Matriarchy, that form of society in which power is with the women and especially with the mothers of a community. Where did I get this from? This is from The Return of the Sacred Feminine. Very interesting segments in that. And they speak about this a little further. One area where written myths are available from an early period is the Aegean culture zone, where the Minoan great goddess was worshipped in a society where women and men were allegedly equals. Gender equality is a typical characteristic of matriarchy, according to the claims of modern matriarchal studies. Throughout history, humankind has revered the Divine Mother principle that personifies the universal love and nurturing spirit that immortalizes the natural bond between mother and child. Mary, Mother of Jesus, historically has represented this divine principle for Christian and non-Christian alike. She represents the ideal woman, the perfection of the female principle, and the incarnation of the eternal feminine aspect, a part of which we all have within our being. Contemplation in the heart, a spiritual technology, increases our understanding of the benefits that accrue as we regain respect for the feminine principle. Then I found a blog post from the Urban Howl, a fellow named Todd Evans. And he starts with this quote by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, another one. To be strong does not mean to sprout muscles and flex. It means meeting one's own luminosity without fleeing, actively living with the wild nature in one's own way. It means to be able to learn, to be able to stand what we know. It means to stand and live. So he says, my wife is reading her book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. It's part of an exploration of her essential power as a conduit for the sacred feminine. Many modern women are looking back to those ancient stories from a time when their innate authority was not only recognized, but revered. And this looking back is a good thing for all of us. The patriarchy's mad assault on life has brought us to a shadowed yet pivotal crossroads that's unrecognized by most of us. We're so easily distracted by the shiny entertainments and manufactured dramas that the patriarchy decides what we should be paying attention to. Ideally, when our divine sanity is greater than our egoic insanity, we will recognize how a naturally balanced yin-yang approach to creating and maintaining our society is the best way to go, but the balance has been dismally skewed for way too long. The more of us who are willing to be the space for the emergence of the sacred feminine, the better chance our world has for healing. The place to truly embrace this change is here, and the time is now. We can choose to live more from the matriarchal worldview to become the change today. Well, I second that motion. And last on this sort of note, I came across this piece from the Good Men's Project, and it's how to prepare our sons for the matriarchy. And this woman, Jenny Hoople, who wrote it, said she started a running list of feminine values she wants to encourage in her son because the matriarchy is coming, and I want him to be ready for it. So she says, of course, she believes women are the ones who will point the way as how to achieve it, but not to overlook boys and men, but to change the voice toward a more matriarchal voice. So here's what we need to encourage, she said. Empathy, caring, consensus, dreaming, openness, sense of community, nurturing, equality, appreciation of beauty, importance of self-expression, living sustainably, caring for Mother Earth, respect for women, and a strong sense of self-worth. And she says this last value may be the most important for our boys because it's the quality they are most in danger of losing as the matriarchy is rising. In the beginning, as the patriarchal ways of being are dismantled, there will be a time of turmoil and anger. That will be directed at men. But we must not let that anger spill over onto our young boys. How about that? Well, all of this, in particular, led me to a poem that I had composed back in 2004 for a matriarch that I knew then was the mother of my then daughter-in-law's father, who had recently died, and I wanted to honor her. And her name was Eileen Garling, and this was for her on her next great adventure, which for me, I thought of as in the cosmos. Dear Eileen, wise matriarch, blue-eyed girl, pickle queen, gardener of flowers and family, planter of seeds and dreams in soil and spirits, lover of peace and poetry, truth and telling it, once met, never forgotten, Rock of Gibraltar, port of call for all sons and daughters dear and grand, near and far, now en route farther than the farthest stars, yet leaving in your wake and living on in many a heart and many a sacred inside place, a legacy of light-filled days and moments of grace and gratitude, of giving, of loving life. Eileen, mother, loyal friend, good lady wife, aunt, soulmate, soul great woman, you will go on, glow on, grow and flow on, never unfelt or dimmed, still here, still now, passionately missed, never forgotten. Yes. The poet Adrienne Rich, who I've brought up once in a while, wrote well about resistance, the liberating power of storytelling, and how reading emancipates. And her book, which you might find interesting, on Lies, Secrets, and Silence, Selected Prose, 1966 to 78. And in that book, she said this: women's culture is active. Women have been the truly active people in all cultures, without whom human society would long ago have perished, though our activity has most often been on behalf of men and children. Today, women are talking to each other, recovering an oral culture, telling our life stories, reading aloud to one another the books that have moved and healed us, analyzing the language that has lied about us, reading our own words aloud to each other. But to name and found a culture of our own means a real break from the passivity of the 20th century Western mind. Thank you. Adrienne Rich. Dorian Laux one more time, because I thought we could come back to some more poetry for a little bit, but some lightheartedness here and sweetheartedness. So she has this poem called Homecoming. At the high school football game, the boys stroke their new muscles. The girls sweeten their lips with gloss that smells of bubblegum, candy cane, or cinnamon. In pleated cheerleader skirts, they walk home with each other, practicing yells, their long bare legs forming in the dark. Under the arched field lights, a girl in a velvet prom dress stands near the chain link, a cone of roses held between her breasts. Her lanky father in a corduroy suit leans against the fence. While they talk, she slips a foot in and out of a new white pump, fingers the weave of her French braid, the glittering earrings. They could be a couple on their first date, she a little shy, he trying to impress her with his casual stance. This is the moment when she learns what she will love. A warm night, the feel of nylon between her thighs, the fine hairs on her arms lifting when a breeze sifts in through the bleachers, cars igniting their engines, a man bending over her, smelling the flowers pressed against her neck. Thank you again, Dorian Laux. Here's a poem that I wrote in the south of France once upon a time about a painting I was taken by that was painted by my gifted young French goddaughter at that time from Aix-en-Provence. La femme ou la fille, the woman or the girl. You notice her deep red lips and long neck first, then the yellow dress full of sun and green buttons, and you wonder where she's walking and what she's thinking about behind her brown-petaled eyes, and whether her hands are folded in prayer or preservation. This auburn-haired femme worthy, alone in a room in the heart of Provence. Jane Kenyon, an always engaging poet. You may remember the poem I read at one point if you had tuned into that program on happiness. One of my favorite poems of all time, Happiness by Jane Kenyon. This is the shirt. The shirt touches his neck and smooths over his back. It slides down his sides. It even goes down below his belt, down into his pants. Lucky shirt. that poem I'd read about, the matriarch Eileen Garling, was out in the Pacific Northwest where one of my daughters-in-law lived, her family lived, and spent time, a couple times a year, often going out there, wonderfully out there. And there was a farmer's market there, and you'd walk up to, and always delightful and marvelous farmers. And this happened, one of those visits to the farmer's market, when, as I thought back to all the faces of women of all kinds all over the world that I've beheld indelibly, visually, emotionally, this was one. Her name was Rachel Van Lannen. It's called The Runaway Smile, at the Uptown Farmers Market, Port Townsend, Washington, September 2010. She had a smile you could run away with, a smile blooming sun and soul, marrowstone roses and pasture grasses, ripe blackberries and honest beauty, blue water and red earth, this lady farmer from Mystery Bay, sharing her milkmaid smile and the hawthorned fruits of her alpine goats. There are, I'm thinking of, and you may do this too, as I think about them, thought about them for our program, but, you know, the women in your life, whether you're a woman or a man, the other women in your life who've been there as dear friends, as lovers, as fellow adventurers and more, that meant a lot to you, that you might like to summon up, might like to remember, might like to honor in some way. So I have a few that I'd love to call out among others, and I just chose some to give portraits of, because they also represent for me some of these wonders of women, of you women, and womanhood. Well, this is for a friend I haven't spoken with in some time, but haven't stopped loving, and her dear husband. Her name is Eleanor, but known as Winky. And this was for her on her 50th birthday back in 2002, New York. Eleanor, French Queen, First Lady, Adam's Eve, childbearer, illustrator, creator of colorful worlds, lover of mysteries and romance, the swirls of morning clouds over Colorado mountains, the dance of life, the pursuit of family, flowers, happiness, and dreams, some transcending wife and mother, dreams for Eleanor to soully shape and savor as you embrace the favor of a new place, a different time, a deeper grace, across the famed divide from the last to now, the next half of your widening life and womanhood, to a world of flowing love and laughter, of marvelous mountains and clouds of creation and contemplation and blooming that await you, dear Winky. You who we appreciate and adore, not just before, but especially on this day and beyond. Our good friend, our good lady, Eleanor. Well, maybe this will somehow vibrate out to her, even if she's not literally listening right now. Or maybe I'll send it to her, surprise her, sort of have a reunion. This is a poem, the next, for a dear friend, soul sister, Anna Ansen. This was for her 44th birthday, that lady of Prague. A woman who would catch your eye any place from Positano to Provence, with her stylish figure, high-boned face and swinging gait, the dark eyes like deep forests that say so, the laughter that fizzes like fine champagne, the pale marble-smooth skin gilded with rings and rosed on the cheeks, and more deeply at the mouth, and round the lips that say oui, this oh so lovely Czech lady. Another soul sister, Rose Felix, over in Concord, Massachusetts. This was for her. Red is the rose, growing beautifully in this garden, is the bird singing in these trees, is this fruit ripening with flavor, is this wine maturing to savor, is the fire blazing in this hearth, is a great planet glowing over the earth, is this roseate woman opening her essence. Another soul sister. I'm blessed to have a good handful of them around the world. And this is Nadia Cohen, a fine artist from Zimbabwe, white South African. And this is my nickname for her is Bushwoman. How are you, Bushwoman? So this is titled that. Tribal woman, head-dressed priestess of African highlands and forests, whose spirit flows like the great rivers and falls, flowers like the flame lily, flies like the sunbird and snake eagle, feels the essence of the earth underfoot, the deep creating, sustaining energies of the universe, all around her, all inside her. Well, there's a poem I'm going to get to in a moment by Maya Angelou on the phenomenal woman. And apropos of that is a poem of mine, just purely bodily, erotically, sensuously, which she talks about as my paean to one. It's called Painting You, for CH. One summer back in time, painting you. With periwinkle on the tips of my fingers, you lie back on a bed of summer, then gently bring my hand to your sun-warm breast, where I begin to paint you in all your colors. Find a palette for your body's purest pleasures, pale periwinkle for your nipples, Naples yellow for the yielding nape of your neck and gracing shoulders, water violet for your half-open lips, rose madder for your parting thighs, leaving your umber fields of freckles and the southern light flowing through your torso, eyes, and limbs, free to complete the picture. Well, as a man, as a sentient man, I feel especially when in great intimacy with another that how vital it is to bring a reverence, a true sacredness to being with a woman, being with anybody in great intimacy, but man and woman for the moment. And this is a piece I read once before for another program, very delicate piece, but I'd like to share it. I think it's meaningful today, right now. When a man enters a woman, enters her warmth, enters her beauty, enters a deep wonder, becomes at one with her, with the other, lets her also enter him, discovers home inside another, gives and receives passion, elation, bliss, sourced from a dreamlike place, a body and soul flowing place far beyond words, far beyond all outer senses, outside all past, all future, when a man of tendermost heart, innermost desire, enters the sacred chambers, the secret garden of a greatly opening, mirroring, and inspiriting woman. Then there's the sheer loveliness, joyfulness, I might even say, limbliness, shapeliness, and sweetness of seeing women in their summer bodies. This was in Soho, New York City, back in June of 1999. The summer is full. The summer is full of lovely legs, the long legs of lithe ladies that draw my eyes from supple thighs under wraps to slender calves, painted toes, sandal straps. The summer is full of silky shoulders, of lip-soft necks and napes, undraped for this sultry season my senses find so pleasing. The summer is full of smooth arms, loose hands, and long fingers my gaze lingers on. The summer is full of sweet skin, honeyed in the sun, suffusing the street with the beauty of hothouse flowers. We're coming into the last stretch here, but this is a poem by Derek Walcott that exuded the feminine for me, and I had to include it for us. Reading Machado, Antonio Machado, poet. So he's referring to that. Derek Walcott. The barren frangipani branches uncurl their sweet thread out of the blue. More echoes than blossoms, they stun the senses like the nocturnal magnolia, white as the pages I read, with the prose printed on the left bank of the page, and on the right the shale-like speckle of stanzas, and the seam like a stream stitching its own language. The Spanish genius bristling like thistles. What provoked this? The pods of a dry season, heat rippling in cadenzas, black ruffles in the arc of a white throat? These are all echoes, all associations and inferences, the tone of Antonio Machado. Even in translation, the verb in the earth, the nouns in the stones, the walls, all inference, all echo, all association. The blue distance of Spain from bougainvillea verandas when white flowers sprout from the branches of a bull's horns. The white frangipani's flowers like the white souls of nuns that move like ponies under pine trees in the autumn mountains. Onions and rope, the silvery bulbs of garlic, the creak of saddles and fast water quarreling over clear stones, rooted and stunted as olive trees. These heat-cracked stanzas, all inference, all echoes, associations. So here's the Maya Angelou poem, Phenomenal Woman. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size, but when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man, the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say it's the fire in my eyes and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breast, the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need for my care, because I'm a woman, phenomenal woman. That's me. Thank you, Maya Angelou. Well, as I said a little earlier about having soul sisters, and I'm graced to know and have known and love and have loved some marvelous women. And the one thing I can say that for me they have in common is this. All the women I love have wings. Yes, wings. Yes, all. Since you asked, bright, wild, beautifully soft and widespread wings that can open and fly from the highest branches of the heart to the deepest reaches of the body, of the soul. The women I love, wings and all. Let's pay homage to the sacredness of all women at heart, at root. This is a poem from Venice, from Venezia, from Italy, one end of summer, years back. Hail Marys, full of grace, in glass boxes round every corner, and blessed art thou among Italian women and men who set flowers at your small and saintly feet, that stand ascended above foot-worn streets. Holy Marys, mothers now goddesses, prayed to by sinners, suspended too in a state of faith, now until the holy and unholy hours of their deaths. Amen. Well, this is a Jane Hirschfield poem, coming to the very end now. It's It's a blessing for a wedding, but I think it applies to lots of other things beyond that. So I brought that in for us as a part of our closing now. Today when persimmons ripen, today when foxkits come out of their den into snow, today when the spotted egg releases its wren song, today when the maple sets down its red leaves, today when windows keep their promise to open, today when fire keeps its promise to warm, today when someone you love has died or someone you never met has died, today when someone you love has been born or someone you will not meet has been born, today when rain leaps to the waiting of roots in their dryness, today when starlight bends to the roofs of the hungry and tired, today when someone sits long inside his last sorrow, today when someone steps into the heat of her first embrace, today let this light bless you with these friends, let it bless you with snow scent and lavender, bless you, let the vow of this day keep itself wildly and wholly spoken and silent, surprise you inside your ears, sleeping and waking, unfold itself inside your eyes, let its fierceness and tenderness hold you, let its vastness be undisguised in all your days. A blessing for wedding. Thank you, Jane Hirschfield. And last for now, a poem I made for a soul sister, one more, but to me speaks to the essence of many other women. This is for Nicole Centeno Hargreaves on her birthday, married to a soul brother of mine. How about that? A pair of them. Spirit of the Rye. Woman of 100 grains, source of the bread of good words and deeds, flowered from the heart. Hearty bread that feeds souls, sons to strangers. Woman of sprouting waves, who thrives through times, places, weathers, and cold winters, bringing fields of gold and green to life and savor. Beautiful woman, long and slender, earth lover, seed sower, nourisher, sun catcher, deep-rooted spirit of the rye. Thank you again for listening in, floating, feeling, and being here, being in this space of this time and place and energy. And to those lending welcome financial support to these programs in my poetic arts, all intended to nourish spirits, uplift hearts, and stir greater self-awareness and aliveness. You can donate if you like, simply by PayPal or Venmo, or directly through my site, or by mail to me, P.O. Box 1032, Westerly, Rhode Island, 02891. I'm currently seeking, by the way, one or more patrons to help underwrite a related but separate offering whose working title is The Floating Poetry Filmcasts. There will be an open-ended series, a collection of 2-minute or shorter videos that all take place out in some part of nature, en plein air, that bring your poet, me, and poetry forth to the world in different landscapes and seascapes, freshly, intimately, and I believe delightingly, which calls for me to acquire sound and camera equipment to create these at a professional level. So if you'd like to sponsor all or some of this exciting emerging project, please do reach out for details or some dialogue about it. As before, I also invite patrons to bring me their way for a month or longer this summer, fall, or winter as a private poet in residence on their property to create a new flight or more of art to dedicate to them. Likewise, fellow artists to collaborate with on projects from the musical to the theatrical, and for producers or directors looking for a poetic narrator. Meanwhile, replays of all the floating poetry broadcasts are online. I hope you will lean in again next week or soon again. Until then, dear listeners, here's to appreciating and celebrating the essence, sensuousness, gloriousness of women, sung and unsung, the beauty and mystery of many things womanly, and how the feminine, at times sacredly, graces our daily lives and larger times. Goodbye for now, and good spirits.